There is a new invasive species that has found its way into Florida's waterways. The armored suckermouth catfish is now sharing the same waters as Florida's endangered manatees. Manatees are already present on most scientists' radar because of their endangered status. But in 2002, when armored suckerfish increased heavily in numbers and in their interactions with manatees, scientists became very concerned. Each winter, manatees can be seen slowly drifting towards warm artesian springs to avoid the cold waters of the St. Johns River. Until recently, the manatee had this resort to itself, but since 2002 there has been an increase in very unwelcome tourists. Up to 40 armored suckermouth catfish are waiting to attach themselves to the surface of each manatee at the mouth of these springs, a behavior that was completely undocumented before 2002. The purpose of this paper is to describe the interaction between the catfish and manatees, and to document the threat level that the catfish proposes to an already threatened species. It is important to understand that the armored catfish isn't the first fish to interact with manatees in this way, but it is one of the few fishes to elicit any type of aggravated response from manatees. Dr. Gibbs explains in her paper interactions between non-native armored suckermouth catfish and native Florida manatees that numerous Florida manatees have been observed with attached shark suckers. However, the shark suckers were not reported to elicit any reaction from the Florida manatees. Florida manatees probably do not react to the presence of shark suckers because they do not move around on the Florida manatee's skin, and as they attach with a modified dorsal fin rather than mouths, they are incapable of rasping the Florida manatee's skin. The only other fishes to evoke an aggravated reaction from manatees are larger jacks and sheep's head. However, these are of little concern because of their inconsistent and brief nature. Conversely, the armored catfish arouses a bothered behavior much more frequently and at a very vulnerable period for the manatees. Unlike the shark suckers and other small fish, the armored catfish uses its mouth to attach to the manatee and grazes for algae off of its body. Dr. Nico reported in the journal Aquatic Invasions that the catfish appeared at times to be resting, but at other times grazed on the algae and other epibiota that commonly grow on manatee bodies. While snorkeling, we were able to approach closely, less than a meter, to catfish attached to manatees. Observing that catfish thought to be resting were actually slowly but actively grazing by moving the sucker mouth in a circle over a small area. It may seem to the reader that these interactions would have little consequence on the overall health of the manatee, but because of the time of year that the catfish are interacting with the manatees, it has a very significant repercussion on the manatee. Manatees require water temperatures between 20 and 23 degrees Celsius to thrive. Because of their low metabolic rate and high thermal conductance rate, for this very reason, the artesian springs are a highly valuable habitat for manatees. If the catfish continue to support their current numbers in the springs, they will provide extra stress to manatees or force them to relocate. Dr. Gibbs shares that a catfish-induced increase in activity could cause Florida manatees to needlessly expend energy required to deal with cold conditions, thus negatively impacting Florida manatee fitness and reducing the value of Volusia Blue Spring as a wintertime thermal refuge. Florida manatees are currently dealing with several environmental stressors without the addition of invasive catfish. Human recreational interaction, pollution, and several natural enemies are already pushing Florida manatees' numbers to the brink. While several government organizations have worked on boating laws, gaining marine reserves, and tightening on pollution reduction policies, there is currently very little in place to protect manatees from the armored catfish. The few sources mentioned and several other unmentioned resources have documented the risks that armored catfish imposes on the Florida manatees and their valuable winter habitats. But there must be more conversation and proactive solutions to relieving the threat this invasive species inflicts on an already waning mammal.